Hello. This video is going to be my process work of the art piece I created in response to the first assignment for Art 31, Mass Communication and its Effect on Art. Uh, this piece is my response to all the research I did, reading the articles and pondering the question how the questions like what are the possible impacts of the whole social media Instagrammable art movement? Um, how would the aesthetic what would be the aesthetics of this new movement, and how will fine art fit into this new world, and how it will be affected and how it will be changed. Uh, yeah, I'm gonna show you my art piece. This is the painting that I created in response, and I'm gonna be breaking down its meaning and what exactly it represents. So, I think the most actually, you know what? I'll actually first go through the process I went to make it, since this is a process. So, um, I spent a lot of time looking at surrealism and stuff because I feel like surrealism is a really good genre, I guess, of art to show representation and symbolism and all of that. And one of the pieces that I did see was this, and this was kind of the first thing that jump started the general idea I wanted to go through with this piece. Here you see a girl and her face is being obscured by this storm scenery, and I thought that kind of represented what I was trying to capture in mind, the idea of being trapped. And then as I read through the articles, there was this one quote, or not quote, but part of the article that talked about how Instagram, social media expectations, and all of that, that Instagrammable art idea was restricting art and censoring it, trapping it into this kind of either conform or fall behind idea. And I wanted to capture that symbolically and literally by trapping my figure in this 1x1 square of 1x1 square. I did it by putting on some painter's tape and then just painting it, then taking it off and doing the edges when I was done. But yeah, essentially it represents the actual 1x1 square that Instagram posts are restricted to, and also represents the restrictions that Instagram and the social media art world puts onto the art that is posted on Instagram and other types of social media. This is the first aspect of the painting. The square here that my figure in the center is trapped within represents that literally and figuratively, that idea of conforming, making your art conform to the standards of what people want to see rather than what you want to create. And I wanted to I didn't want to put it into an actual box, but more so create a feeling of contrast between the background. It's not really a background, between this part of the white, black and white kind of pattern of the outside of the painting and the inside of the square, which is my figure. I don't think that Instagram is a tool that's used to trap art, but it's not the cause. The cause is people ultimately in the outside world, and so I didn't want the focus to be on the actual box itself, which is why I didn't paint an actual box. I just painted a really straight contrast, or edge, I guess, between this and this, because the actual conflict here was between artists and the art that they create and the outside world, which I represented using this mess of black and white, kind of almost fluid pattern that I found on Pinterest. I think the black and white symbolizes like, here, there's a little more light for you, the strict black or white, almost the social media art world that is almost shallow and without depth. It's all about patterns, what looks good as a background for your Instagram post, simplistic shapes, and other Instagrammable characteristics. And so I wanted to capture that using this black and white basic background. It's black and white to represent that either you're Instagrammable or not. There's no in between. And ultimately, whether or not your art is going to be successful on social media is whether or not the people who view your art decide to post it or not post it, put it in their picture or not. And I represented that contrast with black and white. And the fluid-like pattern is supposed to symbolize like just the mess of the Instagrammable art world and the social media expectations and the expectations of society. It's like, yeah, this okay, let me go next. Let me talk about the inside the box now. My figure here is a representation of the artist, the art, and the artist's emotions in the conflict with the societal expectations and the forced conformity in order to gain success in the art world. Purple, I made the person purple as purple represents it creates a connotation of ambition and creativity, and I wanted to show that was being trapped by this edge 1x1 square by making the person actually purple. Their hands are cropped out of the picture, and it creates a sense of being trapped and almost like a claustrophobic type of mood. And I also made the background that the character is in, background kind of foreground I guess, look like water in a way to simulate the look of drowning. Drowning from like all the pressure that's put upon the censorship that's created by the social media art world and etc. And this is further represented in the figure's face. Now the figure's face is a hurricane of a mess of color and uneven strokes, and it's very messy and almost like it's very messy and what's a word? It looks like it's not. Oh gosh, okay. The mess of the face represents kind of an artist's conflicting emotions, that anger, that feeling of being censored, that feeling of being constricted and stuff, especially with like how people are how Instagram and other social media platforms censor nudity and such in art, when most of the time it doesn't even have a sexual connotation. And how art is being held to standards to whether or not it can become public or not, and how that makes the artist feel is kind of represented by this whole thing. there's a lack of any recognizable facial features to show that censorship. You know, there's no mouth. They don't really have a say in what happens, and their identity almost is kind of lost. A figure without a face is a figure without an identity, and an artist that can't express their art is an artist without identity, in my opinion. And that's kind of a con of what happens with the social media art world, and just overall mass communication and its effect on art. Yeah, wait. Essentially, it represents overall the censorship that not only influences what social media accepts, but what artists produce, and how that's been altered or mixed up in this like hurricane of color here to conform and potentially be accepted into society, the social media art world, and society's expectations, which is kind of represented by the outside. But none of the again another thing about the contrast here, the very exact edge. There is no color outside of the square, and I think color is a good representation of art, since color is the basis for feelings of emotion and stuff like that. The fact that there is no color outside of the square kind of shows that art doesn't really escape the boundary of the square, the boundaries of expectation and censorship and conformity. An artist can do as much as they want, conform as much as they want, but they'll never escape the square. To conform is to submit yourself to it. There's no way to break the restraints that social media puts on what you create. And if you try to not follow the crowd, your art isn't going to be as successful, or you won't get as much recognition or publicity as someone who does. The outside is just a barren black and white. It lacks any color. And also, most of the color in the painting is concentrated in the face, and it's kind of it's almost like the color, the creativity, which is and passion, and the color is represented, is trapped in that person's face, in their mind. It's, you can't get it out, and you're restricted ultimately. The dark, cold colors kind of create a feeling of being trapped again, and again going back to this sense of drowning. There's I added this little kind of gradual fade to make it look like water, but it doesn't have to be water, because it can also represent darkness, like light, and yeah, it could represent light where the light is shining onto the person and they're kind of trying to follow it, but they can't. Again, representing that idea of chasing that, the ideal of social media, but still not of the social media art world, but still not being able to actually escape it. Like you can, it's almost like the figure here is looking into a TV screen, which is us, or this square, trying to look at what art, trying to escape, or trying to become part of it. But just like TV, the social media art world and everything that is represented in it and accepted is kind of just idealism, I guess. It's like none of it, all of it is still under the restrictions of everything that, and no artist and no painting or piece of art can break that norm. Let me continue on with the processes I actually went through to make this. I'll show you some more inspiration I got from. This is a album cover for Cage the Elephant's album Melophobia, and I got the original idea for the black and white background from this because when I looked at it while making a Spotify playlist, I felt that same idea of color being concentrated into something, and the lack of color being out, creating that sense of being trapped almost, or being constrained. There's that thing. And I also, for the mixed kind of hurricane of color in the center of the face, I took a lot of inspiration from this artist called Joey Un Lee. And I think especially this piece is a good representation of, censorship. You can see facial features such as the nose and the ears, but there are no eyes. Eyes are kind of referenced to, but they aren't actually there. They're covered. Same with the mouth. It's like this figure doesn't have a voice. They can't see it literally, and it's a kind of representation of censorship. And again, the color represents emotion. I feel emotion, passion, mixed feelings, and all of that, and a bunch of colors or individual emotions conflicting with each other and just creating a big colorful mess concentrated into a specific place. Well, yeah, I think that is everything I want to talk about. It's getting a little long. I don't want to force you to watch a 20-minute video, but that was my process video. Thank you for watching, and sorry it's a little late. I will be on track from now on, and I'm gonna be pumping out a lot of. I'm gonna be catching up a lot for the next like 2 or so weeks. So yeah, bye.